Wow. Wow. This is not really an easy story to share. Um, to be honest, it's a story I struggle with. It's a story that at times when I look back on it, I definitely feel regret. I feel ashamed sort of by it. And it's a story that I think probably like a lot of us, we wish we could sort of go back and erase out of our history and out of our journey, right? When I was 13, my mom was really sick. She had been just really fighting this battle with cancer. And of course, going along with that is just all the chemo, right? Radiation. And I remember the last weekend before she passed away, I was invited by this friend to go and for a sleepover, right? Go chill for the weekend with him and his family and with a couple other friends. And I remember going and asking my parents if this was okay and if this was something I could do. And my dad was like, no, you probably shouldn't. And of course, me being sort of stubborn and being 13, I just sort of put up this fight that this is what I really wanted to do, not knowing, I guess, really how bad things had gotten with my mom. And so my dad and I are sort of bickering back and forth a bit, and my mom steps in and she just is like, you know what, no, let him go have fun with his friends, let him go and enjoy this weekend. And so I go, and honestly, I can't remember anything too significant about that weekend, other than that about 2 days after that weekend, my mom passed away. That hits pretty hard, man. That hits really hard, and it's one of those things, like I said, that I regret. I wish that I could have gone. I wish I could go back and just sort of take that weekend back and just spend those last few days with my mom, just sort of hanging with her and just loving her and soaking up every bit of that time with her, you know?
Regret and insecurity really go hand in hand, don't they? I mean, we regret the actions that we didn't take or the adventures we didn't go on. We regret the things we didn't say. Or probably more often than not, we regret the things we did say. And then our regrets, they end up building into our insecurities, causing us to just feel ugly, to feel like we're not or never will be good enough, to feel like we're not smart or intelligent enough, to feel like we're not powerful or brave or strong or courageous. Or maybe the best way to sum it up is just that it really causes us to feel like we're not enough.
It makes me think of John 4 with the story of the Samaritan woman. And I know a lot of you who were able to join us for Blizzard 2020 probably remember this story. I know I do. That was just such a crazy, awesome, impactful weekend. But the reason that this really springs to mind is that in the midst of all this COVID-19 stuff, in the midst of the lockdown and the isolation, there are a lot of opportunities for negativity to really come creeping in to our hearts and our minds and our souls, right? And maybe we start reflecting and thinking a lot about the things we regret. We start thinking a lot about our own insecurities and just those sort of things. And as I think about this topic, this story really comes to mind. And in this story, you really have Jesus, and he comes down into this village, and his disciples have dispersed. They went to find food, and he comes to this well, and he meets this woman, this Samaritan woman, right? And this whole story is basically just sort of this discourse. It's this conversation between the two of them. And in the midst of this conversation, we start to really find out some of her life choices. We start to really find out just probably some of the things that she regrets. We start to find out about some of the things that have impacted and affected her right down to her core. And the way this breaks out, guys, is that Jesus, through this conversation, through this discourse, he tells her, listen, go home and get your husband and come back, and I will give you guys living water. And she looks at him, she says, well, I'm not married. And Jesus goes, yeah, you know what? You're right, because you've had 5 husbands. In fact, the person you're living with right now isn't your husband. And so here's this woman, and suddenly she's exposed, right? Here's this woman, and she's talking with Jesus, and she's exposed just for all these different things. Her life choices and maybe her regrets, like we were talking about, are exposed. And these are the things that have caused her to be ostracized and neglected in her own community and in her own society. These are the things that have probably just caused her to just feel so much anguish. And Jesus steps into that moment, and through the rest of this conversation, he starts to really help her understand just that she is loved, and that she is valued, and that she is accepted. And those are all the things that she just needed. Those are all the things that I think her heart and her soul longed for, right? See, like her with us, guys, we need to start learning that our regrets and our insecurities, that they don't have to define us anymore. Because I think the truth is that they've defined us for way too long. And like her, we need to start finding our value not from what everybody else says. We need to start finding our value not from what the media says, or from what social media says. We need to start finding our value from what our Creator says about us. You see, God, in Psalm 139, he says these really amazing words. Through that chapter, he talks about the fact that he's willing to just pursue us and chase after us to almost like the very ends of the earth. That he's willing to forgive us and to release us from that guilt and from that sin. That he values us and loves us. In fact, he says, you know what? You are fearfully and wonderfully made. So as we wrestle, guys, with these things, as we maybe think about our regrets and insecurities, I think it's time for us to start learning to let those things go. And instead embrace the fact that God looks at us, that Jesus looks at us, and he goes, you know what? You're loved. You are valued. You are accepted. And I think you are so worth it. In fact, you are so worth it to me that I was willing to come and to take your cross and to live and to die and to rise again just to save you, just to pay the price for you, just so that you can become a part of my family, just so that you can become a part of something else, just so that you can know how much I cared about you. And so, guys, as we've said in weeks previous, a big step in doing this is for us to really just press closer to Christ. It's really about us pressing closer and drawing closer to Jesus, drawing closer to our Creator, and allowing us to be valued by Him instead of being valued by all this other stuff that doesn't really